The young seagull stood utterly alone on his ledge, a solitary figure silhouetted against the dawning sun. The sky bled from deep indigo to a soft, promising orange, but the beauty of the new day offered him no comfort. Below, the great green sea stretched out into an endless, intimidating expanse, its waves crashing against the cliff with a rhythmic, thunderous roar. A full 24 hours had passed since his two brothers and his sister had taken to the air, their confident cries now just a faint echo in his memory. He had watched them run to the brink, flap their wings, and simply fly away. But for him, a paralyzing fear held him fast. He would run forward, then stop, convinced that his small wings would never, ever support him. The sun climbed its arc across the sky, beating down on his rocky cage. For a whole day, he watched his parents flying about with his brothers and sister, perfecting them in the art of flight. He saw them teaching the others how to skim the waves, how to bank and turn with effortless grace, and how to dive for fish with deadly precision. He watched his older brother catch his very first herring and devour it on a rock, his parents circling with proud, cackling calls. The sight was unbearable. All morning the family had walked about on the big plateau midway down the opposite cliff, taunting him with his cowardice. He could only crouch in his hollow, unable to muster the courage to try, a prisoner trapped by his own terror. Now, another sun had risen, and the gnawing hunger inside him had become a sharp, insistent pain. He hadn't eaten a single scrap since the previous nightfall. He trotted back and forth from one end of the ledge to the other, his long grey legs stepping daintily, trying to find some means of reaching his parents without having to fly. He cried, begging them to bring him food. Then he saw his mother. She had picked up a piece of fish and was flying across to him with it. He leaned out eagerly, tapping the rock with his feet, trying to get nearer to her as she flew across. But she halted, hovering just out of reach, the morsel of food almost within his beak. Maddened by hunger, he could wait no longer. The sight of the food was a final, irresistible push. He dived. With a loud scream, he fell outwards and downwards into space. A monstrous terror seized him, and his heart stood still. He could hear nothing, but it only lasted a moment. The next moment, he felt his wings spread outwards. The wind rushed against his breast feathers, then under his stomach and against his wings. He could feel the tips of his wings cutting through the air. He was not falling headlong now. He was soaring gradually, downwards and outwards. He was no longer afraid. He just felt a bit dizzy. Then he flapped his wings once and he soared upwards. He uttered a joyous scream and flapped them again. He was flying, truly flying, a master of the air and the wind. His mother swooped past, her wings a blur of motion. He answered her with a joyous scream. Then his father flew over him, calling out in praise. He saw his two brothers and sister circling him, curveting and banking in a celebratory dance. He had completely forgotten his earlier fear. He joined their aerial ballet, diving and soaring, shrieking with pure delight. He was near the sea now, flying straight over it, facing the vast ocean. He saw the green water beneath him. He finally landed on the surface, his legs sinking in. For a moment he was startled, but then his belly touched the water and he sank no farther. He was floating, and around him his family was screaming, praising him, dropping scraps of fish. He had made his first flight. The time was 1:30 in the morning. High above a sleeping France, the world was a masterpiece of quiet beauty. Below, the lights of Paris twinkled like a carpet of fallen stars, a final, glittering farewell. Alone in the cockpit of his old Dakota aeroplane, the pilot felt a profound sense of peace. The steady drone of the engines was a familiar lullaby, the worn leather of his seat a trusted friend. He was on the final leg of his journey, heading home to England. His mind drifted to the simple pleasures awaiting him. The warmth of his family, the comfort of his own bed, and the promise of a hearty English breakfast. The sky ahead was clear, a vast, dark canvas pricked with the light of a million distant suns. But this tranquility was deceptive, a fragile peace about to be shattered. On the horizon, something was stirring. What began as a smudge of darkness soon grew into a formidable presence. Towering storm clouds, rising like black mountains, an impenetrable wall blocking his path home. He knew he should turn back, that flying into such a tempest was madness. He switched on the radio, calling out to Paris Control for guidance, for an alternate route, for any sign of hope. A voice crackled back, faint and distant, before being swallowed by a wave of static. Then, silence. He was cut off. The storm seized the small plane, tossing it about like a toy in the hands of an angry giant. Rain hammered against the glass, and flashes of lightning offered terrifying momentary glimpses of the churning black chaos outside. He looked to his instruments for salvation, but they offered none. The compass spun in a useless, dizzying dance. The radio was dead, emitting only a low hiss. One by one, the faithful lights and needles that connected him to the world blinked out, leaving him blind. A cold dread washed over him as he glanced at the fuel gauge. The needle was deep in the red. He was lost, utterly and completely, trapped in a black void with no instruments, no radio, and precious little time. Just as despair began to take hold, a flash of lightning illuminated an impossible sight. There, beside him, flying effortlessly through the heart of the storm, was another aeroplane. It was a strange, dark shape, unlike any he had ever seen. It had no lights on its wings, no markings on its fuselage, a phantom carved from the night itself. While his own Dakota was being battered by the turbulence, this mysterious craft was perfectly unnervingly steady. He could make out the figure of its pilot, a dark silhouette against the raging storm. The figure raised a hand, not in a wave, but in a clear, simple gesture. "Follow me." In that moment, logic and reason evaporated, replaced by a desperate, primal surge of hope. Who was this pilot? Where had he come from? The questions were meaningless. This was a chance, a lifeline thrown into the abyss. With no other options, he made a choice born of pure instinct. He would trust this stranger. He would follow this ghost through the tempest. For what felt like an eternity, he flew as an obedient shadow. The black aeroplane became his entire world, his only point of reference in the disorienting darkness. It led him on a silent, choreographed dance, banking and turning, guiding him through treacherous canyons of cloud with an impossible grace. He kept his eyes fixed on it, his heart pounding in time with his dwindling fuel supply. The gauge now read empty. He was flying on fumes, on borrowed time, on faith alone. He knew he only had minutes of flight left, perhaps less. Just as the last drop of hope began to fade, the blackness started to recede. The suffocating clouds thinned, and the violent roar of the storm softened. And then, he saw it. Through a break in the clouds, a soft glow appeared, which quickly resolved into two straight lines of brilliant light. An airport, a runway. It was a sight more beautiful than any sunrise, a beacon of life promising solid ground. Safety was just moments away. With immense relief, he guided the Dakota down, the wheels kissing the tarmac with a gentle screech. He had made it. He was safe. As he taxied off the runway, his first thought was to thank his rescuer, the silent pilot who had led him from the jaws of death. He turned to look for the black aeroplane, to wave, to signal his gratitude, but the sky was empty. The runway behind him was deserted. The mysterious craft had vanished as silently and suddenly as it had appeared. Puzzled, he walked to the control tower. He found a woman on duty and asked about his guide. "The other aeroplane," he said. "Where is it? I want to thank him." The woman looked at him, confused. She turned to her radar screen, a circular green eye scanning the night. "Another aeroplane," she replied, her voice calm and certain. "Up there in this storm. No other planes were flying tonight. The radar shows you were the only one." The pilot stood frozen, the woman's words echoing in the quiet room. No other plane. He was alone out there, so who or what had guided him to safety? The answer was not on any radar screen. It remained in the sky, a silent, benevolent mystery,